Have you ever wondered why the price of gas can just shoot through the roof and we all still line up to fill our tanks? But the second a can of soda goes on sale, we're all rushing to the store to stock up? Well, there's a secret economic code behind all of this, and today we are going to crack it wide open. And to see just how this code works in the real world, let's kick things off with a puzzle from a company that is an absolute master of pricing, Disney.
So, back in 2023, Disney decided to just hit the button on a massive price increase for Disney+. We're not talking about a small bump here, we're talking a 27.3% jump. Now, in a world that is flooded with streaming options, that sounds like a crazy gamble. Why on earth would they risk people just canceling in droves?
They jacked the price up from $10.99 a month to $13.99. That's a full $3 increase. It's definitely enough to make you stop and think twice. So, what did Disney know that gave them the guts to make a move like that? Well, this quote right here from Disney's CEO is a massive clue. He basically said they had room to raise prices further without reducing demand. Now, okay, a strict economist might argue he should have said reducing the quantity demanded, but you get the idea. The message was crystal clear. Disney was pretty darn sure that most of us would just sigh and pay up. And that confidence? It all boils down to this one really powerful economic idea, the one we're going to unpack today. It's called the elasticity effect.
Okay, so what is price elasticity of demand? In the simplest terms, it's the secret sauce that tells a company how much you're going to flinch when they change your price. Are you going to walk away, or are you just going to grumble and pull out your credit card? You know, the easiest way to get this is to picture customer demand like a rubber band. When a company yanks on the price, how much does your demand stretch or snap back? For some things, it's super stretchy. For others, it's incredibly stiff and it barely moves at all. And this brings us to the two big categories. On one side, you've got elastic demand. That's your super stretchy rubber band. Even a small price change, like a sale, causes a huge change in how much people buy. Then, on the other side, you have inelastic demand. That's the stiff rubber band. You can hike the price up, and the amount people buy, it barely changes. Let's make this real. Washing liquid is a great example of something elastic. If it goes on sale, of course people are going to buy 5 bottles and stock their cabinets, right? It's not urgent. There are tons of other brands. But things like essential medicine or even gas for your daily commute, that stuff is inelastic. People need it, so they have to pay the higher price, like it or not. Which brings us right back to Disney's big bet. They believed that their unique content, all the Marvels, Star Wars, and Pixar stuff, had become so essential to families that their demand was inelastic. They were betting they could raise the price, not lose too many subscribers, and the extra cash they'd make from the price hike would be way more than what they'd lose from the few people who did cancel. But elasticity isn't just about one product. Oh no, it gets way more interesting. It also reveals this hidden dance between products. And there's no better example than the classic showdown, Coke versus Pepsi. This is where we bring in a new term, cross-price elasticity. The best way to think about this is like a domino effect. If the price of product A changes, what happens to the sales of a totally different product B? So this idea reveals two really important relationships. First, you've got substitutes. If Coke gets more expensive, what do? They just switch and buy more Pepsi. Simple. Their sales move in the same direction, so we call that a positive elasticity. Then you've got complements, things that go together. If the price of hot dogs goes up, people buy fewer hot dogs, which means, of course, they also buy fewer hot dog buns. Their sales move in opposite directions. That's a negative elasticity. Okay, let's look at some real numbers here, because this is where it gets cool. First, look at that price elasticity column. A simple rule of thumb is that if the number, ignoring the minus sign, is bigger than 1, demand is elastic. It's stretchy. So for Coke, a 1% price increase leads to a 1.74% drop in sales. Pretty stretchy. Now, look at that cross-price column. If Pepsi's price goes up by 1%, Coke's sales actually increase by more than 0.5%. That positive number right there, that's the smoking gun. It proves they are direct substitutes constantly fighting for our dollars. All right, now let's take this same concept and see how it plays out thousands of feet in the air with the airline industry. Airlines are absolute masters of elasticity. They've basically built their entire business around one fundamental fact. Not every single person who buys a plane ticket cares about the price in the same way. They've cleverly segmented all of us into two main groups. On one hand, you've got the business traveler. Their demand is super inelastic. And why? Well, first off, their company is paying for it. Second, the trip is usually urgent, and they can't just change the dates. They have to fly. But then, on the other hand, you've got the pleasure traveler. They're highly elastic. They're paying out of their own pocket, they're hunting for the best deal, and they can often just shift their vacation by a week to get a cheaper flight. And this right here explains that universal pain we've all felt. That last-minute flight you absolutely have to buy for a family emergency or a sudden work meeting is just outrageously expensive. Why? Because the airline knows your demand in that moment is incredibly inelastic. You don't have a choice, and they know it. Now, this whole idea of elasticity is so powerful, it's not just for companies trying to figure out prices. Governments rely on it too when they're making major policy decisions. Let's take subsidies, for example. The government gives money to a producer, let's say a farmer, to lower their costs. That should make the price in the store fall. But who really gets the benefit of that price drop? Well, it all comes back to our rubber band. If demand for the product is inelastic, think of something essential like bread. Producers pretty much have to pass most of that savings on to you, the consumer, as a lower price. But if demand is elastic, like for some kind of luxury item, producers can just pocket more of that subsidy as pure profit because they know a small price drop isn't going to make a huge difference in their sales anyway. It's a really crucial calculation that decides where our tax dollars actually end up going. This all might sound pretty complex, I know, but believe it or not, companies are taking this to a whole new, futuristic level using artificial intelligence. Okay, I know this looks like a crazy complex flowchart, but the big idea here is actually pretty simple. This is just a diagram of an AI model that's built to be a forecasting machine. It sucks in tons of data, past sales, competitor pricing, the weather, even the time of day, and uses it to build a model that can predict with scary accuracy how sensitive you will be to any price change. It's basically an AI-powered crystal ball for elasticity. So what does this actually mean? It means that companies are moving way beyond just guessing or running simple tests. They're now using these incredibly sophisticated AI models to project how you as an individual will react to a price change. This lets them create dynamic, personalized prices in real time. We're really seeing the end of one-size-fits-all pricing. So the next time you see surge pricing for an Uber when it starts to rain, or you wonder why movie tickets are cheaper on a Tuesday afternoon, you'll know exactly what's going on. It's all a game of elasticity. And now that you have the key to this secret code, what other prices that you see every single day suddenly start to make a whole lot more sense?